What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall market. I'm going to break down some big news involving Elon Musk and President Trump that could be causing some high volatility. What's going on with the share prices for Tesla and many other tickers, and what you should be watching for going into tomorrow as I give you guys my price predictions. Just to know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you sign up for Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 25 in total. Deposit $5,000 and you're guaranteed 60 free stocks. The offer ends very soon at the end of July, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with this market. So, looking at Tesla on the 4-hour time frame, we got a high volume sell off after Elon Musk was participating in President Trump's press conference, and that caused a big sell off in the share price. And you guys can see right here, we're getting very close to fill this gap. I think Tesla easily does this as we have more downside potential. But the question is, what's going to happen from there? And I just want to say that as you look at Tesla and you zoom out, we still have a much larger inverse head and shoulders like structure that's developing. So I could see us dipping more as we get a more symmetrical setup, but then that could be followed by a very, very big bounce the closer we get to the Robotaxi event. So I'll talk more about what's going to happen with the share price. As you guys know, it's looking pretty weak right now as you got this double top rejection, and there is going to be that risk of downside and that gap for looking at Tesla. What else could affect Tesla is the broader markets and President Trump's policies, as he just made a huge announcement that could really affect things. So I'll break everything down about President Trump and Elon. Then I'll talk about the share price in just a couple of minutes. Let's first talk about this. So Wedbush is saying that Tesla is going to greatly outperform the market. So far, they are correct about that. Tesla has been outperforming the market for quite some time. Although it's slowing down right now, this is just a very, very temporary move, creating a very good buying opportunity before the Robotaxi event, in my opinion. So that is something that's worth noting. And they still have very, very bullish targets for the end of the year, as Tesla could be running towards $500 a share when we see a lot of growth from the Robotaxi business. And that's what many analysts are anticipating. The price price ratio is on a very, very strong uptrend. As you guys can tell, Tesla still has a lot of strength compared to the market. This may dip temporarily as Tesla shows some weakness. We see a small dip, but that's just a small dip before this continues to go higher and Tesla rebuilds that strength. So overall, it still is a strong stock. Now, the whole market could start to come down just a bit if we see a negative reaction to the new tariff news that came out. I'll talk about that in just a second. And if the whole market does come down a bit, that could also affect Tesla. As you can tell, there's a very similar trend between Tesla and the QQQ and Tesla and SPY. So we'll see how that affects us. Monday tends to be green about 52% of the time for Tesla. And June is historically one of the strongest months of the year. We're green about 80% of the time in June. There tends to be more volatility at 10 a.m. and also during 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So get ready for volatility during those hours. And besides that, there's nothing else that's too crazy that's coming out in terms of our data. But I do want to note that if you look at insider trades, there was a lot of sell signals, lots of sell positions that came out just a couple of days ago, on Friday, especially right before we got that close. A lot of selling was going on with Tesla stock, and I don't necessarily think that's a surprise. So what's happening? I just want to remind you all that Tesla has their potential Robotaxi launch on June 12th. Now, although Tesla has not confirmed this, there's a lot of sources that say that that is what Tesla is going to be doing in Austin, Texas, and that could still be very big. So as we get very close to June 12th, or the end of June to be more precise, I just want to say that that could cause a very, very big bounce for Tesla. And this dip right here is just a buying opportunity, even if Tesla dips a bit more. Now, why did I say, by the end of June, right? That's what Tesla's confirmed. Elon Musk said by the end of June, this should be coming out. Alternative sources are saying June 12th. So we'll see if that's correct. I do believe it's most likely correct, but we'll see just to be safe. With more news, there's been a lot of talk about how the Robotaxi could be the next big growth opportunity for Tesla. What makes Tesla so awesome in lots of investors' eyes is that it's still in a growth phase, right? We're not necessarily in that fully developed growth phase like many other companies like Amazon. There's still so much more potential for growth in the company as we approach, much higher amounts of revenue streams, especially with the Robotaxi business. Now, of course, we're not just going to instantly make billions and billions of dollars of Robotaxi. It's going to take a while to get there. When they launch their cyber cabs, they're going to start off with about 10 of the models, and they're going to expand it as time goes on. Elon Musk said there's going to be thousands of them over the next couple of months. It's going to take time. And then he also said that by the end of next year, there could be as many as 100,000 of them. That is to be determined, but that would be very awesome if that happens, bringing in more revenue. Now, keep in mind, Elon Musk announced that he's going to be departing from Doge, not necessarily or fully departing. I would say it's more like he's just spending less time with Doge and more time with Tesla. So that's huge news. That's part of why Tesla dipped. Now, why is Tesla dipping because of that? Shouldn't that be good news? Well, a lot of the news is priced in for Tesla. Right? We already pumped so much. There's a saying that goes, buy the rumors, sell the news. We were pushing as Elon Musk was about to give his speech during the press conference. And once he gave it, we saw this thing dump, and there is potential to dip a bit more. Now, this could also be what Wall Street's trying to do as they approach the robotaxi event, dump Tesla to start buying it up because they know there's going to likely be a rally. That's just another theory we could have about all of this. But part of the reason why Tesla is dipping is because of buy the rumors, sell the news. It's just a very temporary, healthy pullback. It's also because of symmetry in the share price. So as we came up to this resistance right here, we called out that 370 area as a tough resistance. We have seen rejections here in the past. It's a very, very tough resistance here. We saw the same thing going on. So there's a lot of symmetry in this chart. That suggests that Tesla could be dipping towards like 330 to 340 all over again before it tries to bounce once again to form an inverse head and shoulders. But that is not necessarily a surprise. Another reason why Tesla could sell off is because of the broader markets. If the whole market comes down, that could contribute. Keep in mind that President Trump announced that he's going to be doubling down on tariffs on steel imports to 50%. And he mentioned that as a result, he wants to see Tesla build more in the USA. That could also be a little bit more negative to investors because of the cost of doing that. So keep that in mind. It's going to take Tesla a lot of time to adjust to this. Now, with President Trump making this announcement, he also said this right after he mentioned that China has violated many trade deals with the US, and he wants to double down on these tariffs. So that's part of why the market could see some downside. Now, that's not the end of the story, though. There's actually more to this. So, what President Trump said with context is that 2 weeks ago, China was in grave economic danger. The very high tariffs he said made it virtually impossible for China to trade into the USA marketplace. We went cold turkey on China. Then they made their first deal with China in order to save them from what he thought was going to be a very bad situation. Because of this deal, everything quickly stabilized and China got back to business as usual. Everything was good. Everyone was happy, right? Then he said the bad news is that China, perhaps not surprisingly to some, has totally violated its agreement with the US. So much for being Mr. Nice Guy. So that's what he's saying so far. I think that's a little bit more negative because, this is just showing there's more tension between the US and China. However, despite this, President Trump did say that he's willing to meet up with Xi Jinping, and we have some news that he might be on a phone call with Xi Jinping sometime this week. That is the leader of China. So he might meet up or even make a phone call with the leader of China this week, Xi Jinping. And when they speak, they could negotiate. They could talk about something big. If there's a big announcement that comes from the call, that could help the market bounce. We'll see about that. Or it could cause the market to dip if things don't go too well. We'll see about that. President Trump said that we have a good relationship with China still. He's good friends with Xi Jinping and he's willing to speak to him. That could cause a big move as well. So we'll see what that leads to. They're going to be speaking sometime this week, most likely. We'll see when that is. That's to be determined. The last thing I want to talk about is this when it comes to the tariffs. So, as you know, we had the U.S. Courts of International Trade ban President Trump's tariffs, but a federal appeals court in Washington, D.C. on Thursday temporarily halted the decision and they reinstated them. So, as of right now, that's what's happening so far. They're also giving 5 U.S. based companies in a group of 12 states until June 5th to respond to the administration. So there's a lot of tension right now with these tariffs. There's still a lot of legal action that's going around. As of right now, the tariffs have been reinstated because of the federal appeals decision, but this is still a work in progress, right? The debates and etc. The court decisions are still going on. We'll see what other judges have to say about it later on. So just keep that in mind, guys. That could still affect things in the future. I just want to add that the last thing I'm going to say about President Trump is that he's saying that if the courts somehow rule against the tariffs, which is not expected, that would allow other countries to hold our nation hostage with their anti-American tariffs that they would use against us. This would mean the economic ruination of the United States of America. So although he's saying this, President Trump also mentioned that he's confident that that's not going to happen, right? He said that this is not expected. And he did mention before that he's very confident that the courts are going to be ruling in favor of him and that the tariffs are going to be back. So he did say that, so don't worry too much about that. That's what he's saying. To add on to this, I just want to say that Monday, June 2nd is going to be tomorrow. At 9:45 a.m., we have the S&P Global Manufacturing PMI, which is minor. But what's going to be a lot more important is the ISM Manufacturing PMI, employment, and new orders. New orders is very forward-looking data, so we'll see if this causes a bounce or a dip in the markets. Expect volatility at 10 a.m. as a result. Finally, when it comes to more news, we have Neo announcing earnings alongside Dollar General, Dollar Tree, and many other retail for the week. And finally, there's a lot of greed in the markets. We'll see if we remain greedy or if we become less greedy. Momentum's at extreme fear, but we'll see if it slows down. The put to call option ratio is elevated. We'll see if this bounces or not as we start to see more puts being bought. And the VIX is neutral, at least for the time being. So please keep that in mind. So that being said, guys, I'm not going to go over any more specific details about news. I just want to focus on the charts now. What's going on with Tesla and the market? Well, Tesla's pulling back as a result of the market pulling back just a little bit towards the end of the day. It's also because of the new steel imports that could affect us. And then we also have the news from Elon Musk. So a lot of things coming out that are causing Tesla to dip. So this does resemble an inverse head and shoulders. If you guys could see this, this is like a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. The right shoulder could still be developing, so this could dip a little bit more before it sees a nice bounce. So keep that in mind. So for now, we do look more bearish. I do expect us to fill this gap. It looks very likely we're going to be dipping to like at least the 338 area or below, all the way down to like 330. We'll see, just to be safe, looking at these different things. But the 4-hour, the daily, they're all looking more bearish, especially as we have more selling volume coming in. So we look bearish right now. No matter how you look at it, even the 30 minutes looks a bit more bearish. Now, hypothetically, let's just go over the hypotheticals. Okay, if you want to be bullish, you want to see Tesla basically get back above like 355. If we reclaim that, we could be looking for a rebound back up towards 364. If we reclaim 355, which is not looking too likely. If you're bearish, basically this is your argument. Whether you look at the bigger time frames or not, you have either kind of like a head and shoulders or a double top, whatever you want to call this. This could be like a left shoulder, head and right shoulder, or this could be like a double top rejection, and that could also cause some downside. So if we end up failing at 345, we could continue to fall back down towards 340 or below, if not all the way down to about 338. So we'll just have to see how this ends up going as we see more sellers stepping in. So the odds favor heading into tomorrow, right? We might see a little bit of consolidation. Tesla does love to bounce in the mornings, but then as time goes on, I would not be surprised if we dip. And I do think we could be coming down to at least 340, if not as low as 335. So I anticipate more downside for Tesla. I think the 330s are coming for a temporary dip, but then we'll see if Tesla could form a bottom around here. And then, if we do form that bottom, we could be looking for a very, very nice bounce as we get very close to June 12th, by the time Tesla ends up launching its Robo taxis. So there could still be a very, very big bounce. We're in a very, very bullish month, the month of June. It's historically green 80% of the time for Tesla, so that's a good sign. But we might start off with a temporary pullback before we get a much larger bounce, so keep that in mind. That's the most likely possibility. Another reason why I'm saying Tesla could pull back is not just because of Tesla itself, but because of the broader markets, the algos that affect the whole market. If you look at SPY, we have a more bearish looking setup. Now, if you want to be a bull, you want to see SPY get back above 592.5. If we get good news, there could be an attempt to get back up to the highs if that breaks. But if you're a bear, you're going to be looking for a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. And that could take us all the way down towards 585. If that fails us, we're looking for that gap fill back down to like 578. So with that being said, there's a left shoulder here, a head, and a right shoulder, and that could take us all the way down to like 585, if not this gap fill for 578. So we'll see how it ends up going with this head and shoulders. And if we reject, so one argument you can make is that we have a high here, we came down, made a lower high, and we may just continue to fall as a result of that. It still looks a bit more bearish, so we are favoring the head and shoulders. Watch your levels. If we break 592.5, we could try to bounce if there's some kind of miraculous good news that comes out. If not, we're looking for 585 to take us lower. Like I said before, we're favoring the head and shoulders. We're favoring that this is going to be coming down. If we can't hold 592, we might be just consolidating first and then eventually coming down towards the lower levels, right? So watch that, especially as we have a gap to fill with this head and shoulder setup. We still favor downside. Just watch your levels just to be safe, but that's what I'm seeing for now. There's a bearish divergence on the 4-hour and the daily. That's also favoring a move down towards 585 or below on SPY. On the QQQ, it's the same thing. There's a bearish divergence on the 4-hour. And then if you zoom in and go into like the 30 minutes time frame, we have the same thing essentially going on. We have this like left shoulder here. We have a head. Then we have a right shoulder. We'll see if we break 523. If 523 breaks on QQQ, we could be trying to push back up to the highs. But if we can't break 523, there's going to be a risk of us dipping all the way down to fill this gap towards this 508 area. So you want to be very careful with that. But for now, I think that the head and shoulders looks a bit more probable, and we are still favoring that looking at the current setup. So I just want to be very blunt, very straightforward with everyone. That's what we are favoring for now. For the IWM Russell 2000, it's the same thing essentially. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder. Unless we get back above 208s to balance, we could reject here and start dipping to fill that gap towards 202. On ES, it's the same thing essentially. We could be looking for a potential left shoulder here, a head, and then a right shoulder. Now, if we break 59.50, we could be looking for a big rebound move. But if we can't do that, we're going to be at risk of dipping to about 58.50 or all the way down towards these lower levels. So there is this possible head and shoulders that could be forming. And ES is going to be at risk of downside looking at the current setup. With the left shoulder, head, and then right shoulder, we could be dipping lower. So we'll have to see if we hold 58.50. If not, we're favoring downside. So keep that in mind. Same thing with NQ. We have a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder like pattern. If we get back above 21,500, we could try to get back up to the high, but if we can't do that, we're favoring downside, and we could be looking for 21,000 off the head and shoulders. So that's still favoring downside. Bitcoin pushed quite a bit, but be careful at this 200 EMA right here. We'll have to see if Bitcoin could hold above 105,500. If not, there's going to be a risk of us turning lower towards 104,750. For Tesla, like I said before, we're looking weaker. We'll see if we can hold support here. We might see a small bounce in the morning before it starts dipping, but I easily see the 330s, 338s to 340 being tested soon. Nvidia has the same setup, big rejection, head and shoulders up here. Unless we get back above 136 to bounce, we're favoring a move back down towards 131 to 130. That's the most likely possibility in my opinion. Aapl has a very similar setup. Well, it depends. If Aapl gets back above 104, we could try some kind of rebound move. If not, I'm looking for the same setup, a left shoulder, head, then a potential right shoulder here, which could drag us lower. So be careful, guys, and see if 200 holds. If not, we're looking for 198s to 195. For Netflix, we have 1200 as resistance. We have the support down here around 1197. We might be dipping back down to 1197. We'll see if we bounce. So be very, very careful. For MSTR, we are forming a double bottom. We need to get back above 372.5 to push for 377. If we end up dipping to 360, we could turn lower, but we'll have to see if we bounce. So look for a move down to 360, and we'll have to see how it goes. Celsius looks a bit more bullish. Let me zoom out to the 4-hour. You guys can see it's looking pretty good. Nice double bottom here. As long as you don't lose 36.75, we're actually favoring a push for about 39 or very close to 39 as the most likely possibility. Supermicro has an inverse cup and handle, so we'll just have to see if we bounce. If we break past 40, you could try to be bullish. If not, we might be dipping a bit. So I do think this favors 37.9, and we'll see if it bounces from there. Palantir has a nice accumulation right here. As long as we don't lose 125, we're favoring a push for 135 plus. For Rivian, we have a head and shoulders. As long as we don't lose 15.2, we're actually favoring a dip to about 14. For SoFi, we're getting rejected off the 14 area. It's trying to hold support. As long as we're above 13.27, though, it might see a small push for like 13.7. I could see a small push right here as long as you don't lose that support. AMD is looking weaker, inverse cup and handle. It needs to reclaim 113. If it can't do that, we're favoring 107. It looks a little bit weaker to me. Might fall with Nvidia. ARM has a bearish divergence, could be retesting 122 to 120. We'll see if it bounces. PayPal's rejecting off resistance. It might be dipping towards 69, and we'll have to see if it holds, but it might be coming down just a bit. Coinbase has a head and shoulders. If we break past 254, we're looking for a rebound. If we can't, we could be looking for a move back down towards 240. For Amazon, I just want to mention that we have a high up here. We came down, made a lower high. I want to see it reclaim 208 for this to be a little bit more in favor of bulls. If we can't do that, we're favoring that we might slowly start falling for like 200 or below. So please be very careful. Meta, same thing, right? You want to get back above 655 to balance. If not, we're looking for 642, then all the way back down to 634 as our supports. So we'll see if 640 holds. If not, we could be dipping a lot more. For Google, we have a double top here. We'll see if we get back above 175 to balance. If we can't, we're going to be favoring 169 or below. For Microsoft, we have a head and shoulders like pattern unless we get back above 462 to bounce. We're favoring 457 and all the way back down to 455. For DJT, we got this big rejection right here. We need to get back above 22.5. If not, we could be dipping to like 20. For the VIX, it looks a little bit weak here, but the thing is, the VIX does love to bounce near 18. This happened about 3-4 times in the last couple of weeks. So we like to bounce off 18. We'll have to see if we hold it. I do think it might dip towards that. And we'll see if we bounce. That could favor the market. It's going to see a small rebound when we open, but then there's still that risk of downside if the VIX gets a bounce right over there. The 10 year is kind of flat, and the dollar is looking like it needs to reclaim it 99.6 for it to bounce. So for now, my view of the market is a little bit more in favor of bears, looking at the current setups, but we need confirmation. We need to see SPY lose 585 to start dumping towards that gap fill, to start dipping for 578 or below. And we need to see it break 592.5 for there to be a little bit more of a favor for bulls. We still favor downside a bit more looking at the setups. And for Tesla, of course, we also look a bit more bearish, just temporarily, right? Just for the next day or two. But this could be a very, very big buying opportunity once Tesla dips to like 340, if not the 330s, for us to once again reaccumulate those shares for this inverse head and shoulders to pan out. This could be a small dip before the robotaxi hype starts to push this back up again. So keep that in mind, guys. Look at this as an opportunity. Do not be too fearful. Be greedy when everyone else is fearful. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of your guys' Sunday, and enjoy the rest of your guys' weekends, okay? And I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow before market open with another update. Until then, have a good one, and peace out.